What's up, YouTube? Here we go again. Today, we are back with another NFL mock draft. Today, this is a, middle of the combine mock draft. Now, we have seen some very, very nice things from a couple of these prospects this weekend so far. Now, I'm going to highlight a few before I get started with this mock draft real quick. Where is he? Kenyon Sadiq. Unbelievable. I've said many, many times the last couple months, I think this is a guy who really, really, really could have improved his stock a ton, and he did just that. He was first all time in the 40 time, a 4.39 for a tight end. You know how fucking crazy that is? Unbelievable. He was second all time and third all time in two other of the combine things. Unreal, man. The jump, the high jump, like, come on, man. That's just insane. Caden Proctor also had a very nice combine. Have seen a bunch about that as well. If I scroll back up here as well, here we can go to another guy. David Bailey had a really nice combine so far too. Lemon, he didn't do anything. Okay, but a big one on the no side. McCoy isn't participating, and he has been hurt for like 500 days. So I'm starting to get a little concerned here. I don't think it's going to affect his stock that much right now, but I'm definitely seeing more red flags there. Caleb Banks also had a really nice one. They already moved him up a bunch too. Dylan Thieneman, definitely. I think I already know where I want him to go. And now he went from, I believe, a mid-day 2 pick on these rankings to pick 20, which is pretty fucking crazy. But let's get into it with pick number 1. No doubt about it. A team told him that he should commit a crime so he can, get arrested and kill his stock. If I'm going to guess who it was, Miami's not a bad shout, bro. I'm not going to cap with you. I don't know. I don't think anyone else would say that. Yeah, maybe the Cardinals. Well, who knows, man. But with pick number 2 here with the New York Jets, I'm going to keep it Arvell Reese. He had a nice combine. I think he's probably the least flawed player of the three. The three edge rushers with Bain and David Bailey. But obviously Bain, his combine was a little less exciting as Bailey's, which is definitely throwing some red flags, as we already had some because of the size and his arms and whatnot. But at pick 3, I'm gonna stick with my what I've been going with here. Although I don't hate the shout on Downs, but I do think Mawaga is just perfect. You bring in an offense-minded coach with Mike LaFleur. You bring in, who knows at quarterback, right? You need to protect the guy, and I think Mawaga with Paris Johnson, who's already in, a Pro Bowl guy, caliber player. He was pretty good this year. I think this is just a perfect pick. Now, pick 4, this gets really interesting. Now, if you asked me 2 days ago before the combine started, I would have said Ruben Bain. But now with that, we're into 2 days in. David Bailey's really, really definitely, moved himself up. I think I'm going to go with David Bailey here. I do think the combine has elevated him above Bain for a lot of teams, and think I think he'd be perfect. Obviously, the Titans just traded for Jermaine Johnson. They traded T'Vondre Sweat. This opens up the other side on, the edge for David Bailey. And I think, Jermaine Johnson, him, and, obviously one of the best defensive tackles in the league, if not the best, Jeffrey Simmons in the middle. That's just beautiful. Now, with the Giants at 5, now, the New York Giants beat reporter talking about, this team's going to go draft Jeremiah Love. I don't think so. I really don't. I can't see it because I really do think John Harbaugh loves Caleb Downs. Now, Sonny Styles also didn't mention though. Incredible. Might be the best linebacking prospect, like true linebacker prospect I've ever seen in my lifetime. I think he's going to be the highest drafted since Devin White. Before that, it would be Von Miller. But there's not a lot of guys that, you know, that have been drafted really high in linebacker, and I do think Sonny Styles could be in play here at pick 5 now. I do think he could be in play at pick 4. Even 3, I don't think it's a bad shout, although I think the Cardinals have bigger needs. I don't think it's a bad pick per se. But the Giants here, I'm still going to stick with Caleb Downs. I do think this is just the guy to go with. I think he is just the best player in the draft, and I don't think you turn down getting him at 5, in my opinion, and I don't think they will either. Now, with the Browns at 6, this is a tough one because Sonny Styles is probably not the pick. Obviously, Owusu Karamoa probably never going to play again. Sad, sad shit. Really disappointing because he was a pretty good player for a couple years. Just, just a shame, man. I do think, you know, Fano or could anyone else? Probably not. But Fano would be the guy I would think the most likely that they take, but today I'm going to go a little different because I do think they have a huge need at wide receiver, and I do think Cornell Tate is the favorite for them as a coaching staff. Obviously, they bring in Todd Monken. They do have a huge need at offensive line, and I do think Fano is definitely in heavy contention, but I do think if they don't go with him, I do think Cornell Tate is the pick, and I think this is a team that whoever's playing quarterback next year, this is a team that needs receivers, and I think Tate's a perfect one. Obviously, they have a plethora of picks. Obviously they have the second first rounder. Who knows what they'll get there? Ty Simpson, the offensive tackle, but let's get there when we get there. Now, with the pick 7 with the Washington Commanders, this is tough because I really do want to say Ruben Bain, but Sonny Styles is really, really, really tempting. But I'm still gonna say Bain for now. I still think he would be drafted over Sonny Styles. It's hard for me to argue that, although I do think Sonny Styles has really, really pushed that gap between them. That Bain I was projecting at 4, and I had Sonny Styles at 10. It's getting a lot closer. But now the Commanders, or with the Commanders, yeah, they need edge rushers. They need it bad. They had Von Miller as one of their best edge rushers this year. Let's fix that. Now the Saints, I'm gonna stick it with Makai Lemon. I just think this is a perfect fit. I think Olave on the outside. I think Kellen Moore is the play caller, offensive play caller. Really good stuff. I mean, we saw Jalen Hurts have his best year ever with Kellen Moore. We saw good years from Dak, some great years from Dak with him as the OC. We saw Herbert have pretty good years. Obviously, he was hurt some of those years with Kellen Moore, but Makai Lemon with Tyler Shuck, the RB needs to be fixed, but you got Olave out wide. You got Makai Lemon, who's basically Amon-Ra and JSN. I really think he could play anywhere. I know his size and height is just a huge concern for teams, but I really do think this guy's going to be an absolute fucking demon. And he's probably my favorite receiver in the draft. That doesn't mean I don't think he will go first, and I'm not going to pick him first, as I do think there are there are players that fit teams better than others. And I think Carnell Tate might. I think the OSU connection, as well as just I mean he was very, very good. Now he's probably the safest guy in the draft. He probably has maybe the lowest floor of the 3 best receivers with Tyson and Lemon, but he also probably has the lowest upside. Now I think Tyson has top 10 as well as Lemon, as I've said a couple times. But pick 9 with the Kansas City Chiefs. I don't argue this one until they sign a running back. I'm not going to go away from Jeremiah Love. This makes too much sense. DeMarco Murray is RB coach. The enemy's back. Get me Jeremiah Love in Kansas City, which I hate because they'll be very, very annoying with them. Now, at pick 10, there is no doubt about it anymore. Sonny Styles is that pick. The Bengals need help at linebacker, and I think he's the perfect guy to lead that defense. Obviously, he's going to stay in state as well. And then pick 11, I'm going to go with Mansour Delane. I'm getting ahead of myself here with picking already, but I think Mansour Delane just makes perfect sense. I don't think they're going to reach on. I think they're going to go safe. You know, could they go a couple different things? I think Jordan Tyson could be in play, like I've said a couple times. Caleb Banks, I don't hate either, honestly. C.J. Allen, who knows? But I think Mansour Delane's probably the safest player. I think you just get a guy who's going to be probably a Pro Bowl, All Pro caliber corner. I mean, he was the best corner in college football this year, and I'm really just looking forward to him playing in the NFL. Hopefully, he could be the next Dolphins, elite corner that they've had because they've had a lot. Now at 12, I'm sticking with Jermon McCoy. I said all that about being concerned, but I don't think the Cowboys go away from it. Could C.J. Allen or Keldrick Falk be in there or Terrell? Yes, but I don't think it's going to happen. I think the Cowboys have a clear need at corner. I think Jermon McCoy's arguably, a top 10 talent in the class. It remains to be seen about his health. That would be the main thing for him at the moment. And with the Los Angeles Rams at pick 13, I'm going to go with Spencer Fano. Now, I have had Fano up to 6 most of the time. I do really think he probably is going to go top 15. I think the Browns are a perfect fit. I think they're a team that really needs offensive tackle. And I think Fano is just, he had a great year again at Utah. And I think the Rams is a perfect team for him, regardless. I think they could really benefit from a receiver. I think they could really benefit from Terrell. I don't hate the idea of them reaching on Dylan Thieneman anymore. I don't think it's a huge reach at 13. Excuse me. Besides that, I don't really see much else besides C.J. Allen, maybe. But pick 14 with the Baltimore Ravens, no doubt about it for me. This needs to happen. Jordan Tyson will absolutely be a fucking killer with the Baltimore Ravens. I think Lamar would absolutely love him. This is the true number one they're asking for. This is the guy to help Lamar push it. You're trying to win a Super Bowl at the end of the day. I think this is the guy to go do that for you. Now, Zay Flowers, obviously the wide receiver 2. I think him in the slot, he plays pretty all over the place, but outside in the slot, I think he could be a really good player, regardless of where he's positioned on the field. And pick 15 with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I'm going to go back to what I had before after this elite combine, where I do think he actually elevated his stock back way, way up. And I think Kenyon Sadiq is pick 15. I think Cade Otton is a free agent. I think that, glares open a hole for you. I think Kenyon Sadiq would absolutely be beautiful on this team. I do absolutely love him going to Philly. I think he could be nasty in Carolina. I don't rule out Minnesota. You could go a couple of these teams. Now, I'm not going to go, where Daniel Jeremiah did and say he's going to go to Los Angeles to the Chargers, because I'm not that crazy. But there is a lot of teams in here. I don't, Dallas and Detroit definitely have, possibility. Now, pick 16 with the New York Jets. Obviously, we picked Arvell Reese before. I'm going to go with Caleb Banks. I think this is just the best player available. He had a very good combine. Very promising for a defensive tackle. He was actually way faster for the amount of body mass he has. Excuse me, nice voice crack there. But I think Caleb Banks is just a perfect prospect for them. Obviously, they bring in T'Vondre Sweat as well. I think right next to Caleb Banks, you got Arvell Reese, you got Will McDonald. Obviously, Jermaine Johnson's gone too. I think this is just perfect. I think this is just a great fit. Obviously, you're replacing the huge production you had from Quinnen Williams the last couple of years. Now, at 17, I'm going to go Avion Terrell. I think this is a team that really needs secondary help. And I think corner is a perfect one. And I think Terrell is a very good prospect. Curious to see how his pro day and combine could, fall out. I think he's a guy who could really raise his stock as well. I think he could push McCoy based on, that health factor. not just just his ability too. I think he's a very talented corner. He has really good tape at Clemson, and yeah, I think let's move on to pick 18 here, and I think this is where I want him to go. The second I said it earlier, I said Minnesota is perfect. This is a team trying to replace Harrison Smith, trying to replace Cameron Bynum, who obviously left free agency in 2024. 2025, Harrison Smith is going to retire eventually, inevitably. Yeah, it just hasn't yet. But regardless, Harrison Smith is 35. You're trying to, prepare for the future. I do think, Peter Woods would be awesome. I think Cade McDonald would be awesome. But I'm going to stick with Thieneman, who I do really think is a top 18 prospect in this class after, the pro day, or sorry, the Senior Bowl, and now the combine. He had a really, really good day. Probably the best day for the safeties, arguably. Now, at 19, I'm going to go with C.J. Allen. I think this is just a perfect pick. This is a team that does need help in that middle at the linebacker position. Really haven't had a great linebacker since Luke Kuechly, probably. Can't think of another one. I mean, yeah, I think that would be the best guy. Obviously they had John Boston, they had Luke Kuechly. This is a team that's had some great linebackers in their day. I think C.J. Allen would be really nice in that middle. Josie Jewell I think was one of their best guys. Um, that's really not going to cut it, unfortunately. Yeah, if you want to push yourself defensively too, I think this is just a perfect fit. Obviously, their defense last year was pretty good, regardless, and Dallas definitely would have liked to have him. Now, Dallas at 20, this is a team that's going to take two things. They're going to take a corner, they're going to take an edge rusher. Falk, who they could have taken at 12, does fall all the way to 20. I do think, Falk, Howell, Mesidor definitely in play for them. I do think this is a team that wants to try and win. They want to try and win with Dak Prescott. Will that happen? It's the Cowboys. They've never won in my lifetime. Probably not. So, Keldrick Falk does make a lot of sense for them. A team trying to replace Micah Parsons' production. I think Falk is a very talented player. I think Howell is too. I think Falk's a bit safer at the moment. At 21 with the Pittsburgh Steelers, who knows, man? This is a really, questionable team at times, based on how they draft. Now they drafted Kenny Pickett at pick 20. Could they take Ty Simpson here? Oh, they definitely could. Could they take Denzel Boston, Bonner Freeling? I think these are the two top guys for me. A corner definitely would make sense too. I don't think Cissé's moved himself up enough at the moment. I'm gonna go Monroe Freeling. I think this is just a Steelers-esque pick. Could they go Ione too? Yeah, definitely. But I'm gonna stick with that, and I'm gonna go Ione. Who makes more sense than, I don't know, many players that make more sense for a player in one spot than Ione on the Chargers. They have had horrible, horrible, horrible guard production the last couple of years, and obviously, you know, Bradley Bozeman retired. Mekhi Becton's probably going to get cut. Trying to think of the other guy. But he wasn't good at all either. I mean, Pipkins was hurt. Obviously, Alt was hurt. Slater was hurt. Get Ione, who's clear best scorer in the class, and be happy about it, really. Now, at 23 with the Philadelphia Eagles, I would absolutely love Kenyon Sadiq here. Not going to happen anymore unless they trade up. I am going to settle for Denzel Boston instead. I do think this is a team that's going to add on the receiver portfolio. Now, A.J. Brown, I do think is going to get traded. Jahan Dotson as your wide receiver 2 then, if A.J. Brown is gone. Yeah, that's not going to cut it for you. I think besides that, you have Darius Cooper, Johnny Wilson from FSU. Yeah, I'm not, personally, I'm not going to be very content with that. And obviously, Dallas Goedert's a free agent. I think your backup tight end would be Grant Calcaterra. Yeah, no. Let's bring in a receiver. I think Denzel Boston makes more sense than Casey Concepcion, who I do like more than him. Now, with the Browns at 24, obviously we did take Carnell Tate at 6. I think Caden Proctor has absolutely improved his stock. I think this is a guy who is close to the best tackle or second best tackle in the class, talent wise. It's just whether his size and mass, I guess, would be the word to use for it, can adjust the NFL. Obviously, the NFL is really fast players. It's a really high step up. Will Campbell, obviously, who he has very short arms, didn't really translate to the NFL level this year as much as people might have expected. Obviously, he was picked 4. So Proctor at 24, I think this is a very good shot. I think he's a guy who, if he doesn't work at tackle, I think he goes inside. He'd be fucking nasty inside too. And let's move on to pick 25. Now, if this guy falls to the Bears, this is an absolute fucking homer. Peter Woods is awesome. I do really think his production was great. Anyone knows his production was great at Clemson. Cade McDonald would be perfect for them too, but I'm going to stick with Peter Woods, who I do think is a better player. Although, Cade McDonald seems to want to go to the Bears, or seems to like the Bears. Now, at 26, no doubt about it for me here. Casey Concepcion is the Josh Allen weapon they are looking for. 27, though, with the Niners, I'm going to go with Cassius Howell. Obviously, they drafted Michael Williams. Nick Bosa has been injured, and, he's getting older. I think he's 28, 29. Cassius Howell does make a lot of sense for this team. They need edge help. We saw that last year. Obviously, they had, Keon White. I think they had Clelin Ferrell. Now, Clelin Ferrell is one of the worst top 4 picks, probably one of the worst 4th overall picks ever. Edge rusher, being that bad. I think Dion Jordan is the only one closer, in my opinion. I cannot believe, how bad Clelin Ferrell was, and I think, you don't want Keon White and Clelin Ferrell as your, edge rushers, as your. I think you need to be more outgoing, and I think Howell is arguably a top 20 prospect in this class, one of the better edge rushers in the class. Obviously, you have your top 3, and then it drops off quite a bit, but I think he's a very talented player, and I do think this is a good fit for him. Now, with the Texans, this is a team that needs offensive linemen. I don't care what their fucking GM was saying about, oh, our line looked a lot better. We did not see that this year. No, let's take Caleb Omo, who is a very, very good prospect, and I think he would just be an ideal guy. I mean, this is a team that really, really needs offensive line more than anything on the team. And yeah, let's move on to pick 29 with the LA Rams. And obviously, we scroll back up here. We can see I took Spencer Fano. Who do I take here? I think I take Brandon Cisse. I think Ty Simpson is really in play there. I think Cade McDonald could be in play. McNeil Warren. Definitely any of those 3 could definitely be the pick. And I think Cisse just makes a lot of sense. Obviously, I said before, corner is a huge need for this team, and who better, I really do think, he's a guy who could improve his stock. I think he could definitely go up. He was very good at South Carolina this year. Let's move on to pick 30 with the Denver Broncos. And Cade McDonald would be an absolute steal there. Now, McNeil Warren has definitely probably moved himself up into that, territory. Now, the Broncos, I really want us to get Eli Stowers. Is he worth it at 30? I don't think so. I really don't. And I'm going to go Cade McDonald or McNeil Warren because I do think that's really what they do. I think McNeil Warren is more likely. Now, Brandon Jones was injured this year. Obviously, we ran into some problems with Caden Stearns playing. Oh, sorry, Caden Stearns. That's the wrong player. That guy's retired. PJ Locke playing. And that's a lot more questionable, and I think McNeil Warren is just a lot better. I do really like Brandon Jones, but I think McNeil Warren is just an absolute beast of a prospect, too. And the Pats would have liked to have him too, if he would have fallen there. Because Cade McDonald on that team would be crazy. Who knows what will happen with the situation with Christian Barmore? Obviously, he has his legal situation. I cannot recall what he did, but at 31, I think they go Mesidor or they go TJ Parker. I think TJ Parker makes a lot more sense for this team. I think you'd go for a player who's not 25. I think sorry, holy hell, I can't speak. I think TJ Parker is 22 years old. Yeah, and I think that just doesn't, Mesidor. I don't think he makes sense for the Pats. I really don't, because I think this is a team who needs to have younger players. Obviously, you have Harold Landry on the opposite side of Parker. You need to not be super super old for your team, because by the time his first contract's gonna hit, he's gonna be 30, near 30. I think he'd be 29. But 32 with the Seahawks, this is a hard one, because I do really think Cade McDonald should be a top 32 prospect here, and it's hard for me to leave him on the board super long too. But Zion Young, Mason Thomas had a nice combine as well. I think they go any of these could be the pick for them, really. I don't think it's going to be Colton Hood here. I'm not going to say him this time, which is surprising, but I'm going to say Cade McDonald, because I do think he is the best player available there, and I do think he would be awesome on that team. And they have a couple more players to pay, so who knows who's on the outs. And I do, again, he's probably going to be higher than that. But it's hard to rank him and him, Woods, and in between, because a lot could still change in the time we have left. So, like I said, a couple of these guys really improved their stock. David Bailey being a huge one. Johnny Styles had an unbelievable combine. Banks had a great combine. Sadiq, McNeil, Warren, Thieneman, Caden Proctor. We'll see who's more to come. Caden McDonald has looked good too. I like what I hear. I like what I hear when I hear good interviews as well. Like Sadiq too. Sadiq had fucking unbelievable interviews. So it's really good to hear shit like that. Now, Jermon McCoy, Ruben Bain, a couple of these guys that are moving down on my board here. But, who knows? I mean, Ty Simpson I don't have in the first round in this one, and I do think he's going to end up going in the first round. It's just hard to pick some of these sometimes, because there's so many good players. Cade McDonald, does he deserve to be picked 32? Probably not, man. I do think he is a very, very good player and a very underrated player in this draft, but this is a very good draft. And obviously someone inevitably is going to reach and somebody's going to fall out. But that is all for me. I will see y'all next time. Peace out.